guys, what's up? It's Katy Candy and the Droker here with another episode of From Comics to Cinemas podcast. For those of you who don't know, we are gamers on Twitch, and you can see the links to those channels in the description of this video and at the end of the video, so be sure to drop us a follow. Remember, you can catch the live recording of this show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Candyland Discord. So today we are going to be discussing who? Peacemaker. Yes, that's right. Who he is in the comics, what his major story arcs are, and what the DCEU is doing with him in this series. And I gotta say, I absolutely loved the first season of Peacemaker. Like, I thought it was so good. It was dark, but it was funny. I mean, it had the elements of DC that I love with the humor to go along with it. And I gotta say, when I first saw Peacemaker, or when I first heard John Cena was cast as Peacemaker, I was like, first of all, I don't really know too much about Peacemaker. Second off, John Cena, look, I wanted him as Namor, but we're not going to go there.
That's right. She did say that. That's true.
I did say that. True. So without further ado, let's jump into Christopher Smith, the man who loves peace so much that he'll do anything to achieve it, no matter who stands in his way. Dun, dun, dun.
I thought you were just going to end it there. I was going to be like, oh, well, I mean, yeah, he does that too, but, you know.
I mean, he really will, like, do anything to achieve peace. So who actually is Peacemaker? And I didn't know this. I didn't know he actually wasn't a DC original. He actually first appeared in Fightin' Whoa, Katie. Fightin' 5, there we go, number 40 in 1966 by Charlton Comics, which he was part of that team for, I think it was like 5 issues, and then he had his own series in Charlton Comics that lasted about another 5 more issues, and he was actually one of their biggest heroes, which is kind of cool because, you know, in the DCU, he's not really labeled as a hero at all. At all.
An extreme vigilante, I guess one could say, would probably be the best definition of him.
Pretty much. And I'm not talking about Adrian.
Yeah, no, not the character vigilante, but like his status.
Yes.
Extreme vigilante would probably be the best,
Yeah, so who he was in the Charlton Comics is different than who he was in, or is rather, in the DC Comics. So in the Charlton Comics, he was the only child of an army officer turned statesman and a research scientist mother. He became a pacifist diplomat working as a U.S. peace envoy for the Geneva Arms Conference, and he loved and wanted peace so much that he was willing to fight for it, and when extreme measures called for it, he actually adopted the identity Peacemaker. Now, he was actually a skilled weapons builder and actually built, wait for it, non-lethal weapons for his Peacemaker identity, which is very different than what we saw of him in the show. Right?
Yes, very much so.
Like,
very, very much so.
Everything exploded in the show, let's be honest. Except for that scabies helmet.
It did have a Michael Bay-esque quality. I guess James Gunn kind of channeled his Michael Bay energy for that film. But yeah, it worked. So, you know.
I highly enjoyed it. Now, in 1985, Peacemaker actually made his DC Comics debut in Crisis on Infinite Earths number 6, which basically completely destroyed the DC multiverse. Now here, the Charlton characters were revealed to have existed on Earth 4, which then converged with Earths 1, 2, S, and X.
There you go. She did it.
I had to make sure I enunciated that because otherwise it would have sounded completely different. So here, Peacemaker was given a new origin. He was not Christopher Smith. He was Christopher Schmidt.
Yeah, they went the Marvel route with this one.
Yeah, they did. So
they went the Marvel route.
He was the only son of an Austrian munitions manufacturer who was actually part of the Nazis' SS elite during World War II, and his mother was a famous children's book author. Then his father, after documents revealing what he had done during World War II surfaced, basically ended himself. That's all. That's I'm gonna say it.
Yeah.
Right in front of young Christopher, which you can imagine would kind of mess anybody up, right?
Gonna cause some issues, just a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna cause some issues. So with all of that happening, he and his mother left, and they changed their last name from Schmidt to Smith. So now
they Americanized it.
Yeah, they Americanized it. So basically now we are back to Christopher Smith. So because of all of that trauma and the moving, the complete like upheaval from everything he had known, Christopher pretty much had some issues growing up as a kid. He was unruly, he was a bit of a bully, but then when he turned 18, he joined the military, and that seemed to kind of help chill him out, let's say.
It gave him guidance.
Yeah, it gave him, which was probably much needed after all of that, correct, right? So he was actually identified as an exemplary soldier, and he was promoted to a sergeant. And then something happened. So he was on a scouting mission on a small village suspected of harboring North Vietnamese troops. And they were just supposed to kind of check it out, that sort of thing. And then Smith fired upon the village, killing elderly people, women, and children. So he was court-martialed and sentenced to life imprisonment at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, but he was offered a pardon if he joined Project Peacemaker, which was basically a top-secret, high-tech, independent anti-terrorism squad. Sounds a lot like Suicide Squad, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, sounds a lot like it. It's not, but it's very similar.
Yeah, there was minus the bombs in the head. That was basically like the first like iteration of Suicide Squad.
Yeah. And so, but everything was kind of cool and copacetic, but then 8 months in, the program was shut down and was basically kind of like lost in the bureaucratic shuffle. And Smith literally just walked out the base. No one stopped him. Nothing. He was just like, all right, I'm out, right? And basically disappeared for a year. No one knew anything, where he went, any of that. But then, like I said, for a year, he was gone. He reappears leading the PAX Institute, which is a nonprofit organization devoted to the interest of peace and providing social services to victims of terrorism all across the world. Now, this drove Smith to want to achieve its prime directive, combating terrorism. So thus he took on the name Peacemaker for himself and a costume identity. So it's kind of cool because it starts off like, okay, he was pretty cool, and then all of a sudden something snapped in him, right? And then he was court-martialed and all this other stuff. So now we're kind of starting to see a bit of a tie-in with potentially
where we end up in Peacemaker, the show.
Yeah, a little bit. So so he took on the Peacemaker name, and he became more and more unstable. Like, he started to kind of go a little bit, I don't want to say insane, but he was kind of going down that route. And this made his actions become more and more violent. He began actually hearing the voice of his father in his helmet and believed that the voice was the souls of those who fell to terrorism, and they were urging him to become more violent in order to achieve peace and get retribution. So, and we kind of see that at the end, right, of Peacemaker. Whenever he kills his father, then all of a sudden his father appears, right? So we kind of start to see that. Now, he joined this group called the Agency, or more or less the Agency kind of was there. Valentina Vostok was actually head of the Agency, and I know that sounds like a lot like the chick that we see in Marvel, but it's not.
Right, yeah.
It's not. Her name is also Valentina, but it's not the same person. Now, she tried to stop his violent tendencies and prevent him from killing enemies that he created. One of these enemies was Vigilante, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Vigilante a little bit later, because Vigilante is a really cool character. There's been a lot of different vigilantes. So, and we're gonna touch base on which one we think they're basing the one in Peacemaker off of. I don't think it's the OG, even though he has the same name,
Yeah,
Adrian
he
Chase.
has the same name as the OG Vigilante, but he has the entire characteristics of the second Vigilante, which would be his son.
Yeah,
so.
which would be Dorian Grace.
Dorian.
Or Dorian
So
Chase.
they kind of mix them together for the show of Peacemaker, which I think was a good call because, I mean, look, the reality is it's a Hollywood show. You don't know how long the show is going to be on, so you kind of want to get your character in there with an interesting story, and you'll deal with the retconning or the canon later kind of situation. So I think it was cool. It was a good call. He's a great vigilante.
He's good, and he really is, because they really take a bunch of the aspects of Dorian Chase and put it into him. So, but okay, so where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about the agency. Right. So unfortunately, they couldn't stop him from killing Vigilante.
Right.
So that was kind of unfortunate. But despite him being unstable, they still attempted to make him a field agent. And
they were convinced he could do it.
I mean, hey,
they're not wrong. He does get it done.
He does get it done.
In questionable means, I guess.
But they actually assigned him to a psychologist, and Vostok then passed control of the agency to Harry Stein, who renamed it to Checkmate. But Harry Stein actually was one of the quote-unquote enemies that he created in his mind. Yeah. So it's kind of wild. And then he was recruited by Amanda Waller to join the Shadow Fighters. So this one's kind of interesting because in here, they were tasked to free the South American country of Parador, which is being taken over by Eclipso. And Eclipso, their first attempt at the mission completely failed, right? Because Eclipso actually killed a lot of heroes, and he even killed Peacemaker. But Peacemaker's soul stayed in purgatory because comics. And
he killed a lot of people too that didn't, he's got that I guess regret,
I guess
heavy soul kind of personality, because he does in the comics, he does in the show too. They get that across very well in the show as well. He's very remorseful is the word I'm looking for. Remorseful.
Yeah. Especially for certain ones, and it's I know in the show he has extreme guilt over the death of his brother. He feels so responsible for the death of his brother. So it makes sense for his soul to stay in purgatory. But then he made an appearance on Day of Judgment and helped a group of heroes return back to Earth. But he somehow made it back too, and he was considered dead. While he was actually considered dead, though, the League of Busters and Mitchell Black actually took up the Peacemaker role. So it hasn't always been Christopher Smith who has played Peacemaker. Been Peacemaker, rather. There have been other Peacemakers in the universe.
Yeah, and we see that over and over again between every comic and everything. The mantles, we talk about it a lot. The mantle being passed on, it's kind of like a rite of passage, which rightfully so. And he's got an iconic costume, man. That very bold red, yellow, white with the helmet. It's very that's if you didn't know Peacemaker, when you would see him on a battlefield or a lineup, you'd be like, who's that guy? What's his story? He's got kind of a crazy look to him.
It's a really cool look, and it is iconic. Once you see him, you're gonna know who he is.
You know that's Peacemaker from there on out. Okay, that's
that guy. Which, by the way, when he first appeared in the movie, now I'm jumping a little bit kind of ahead in the movie, and he killed Josh Flagg. I was like, who is this guy? I was so upset.
Yeah, that movie is Suicide. Which you haven't seen, Suicide Squad, the latest one, directly ties into Peacekeeper. It's James Gunn's basically creation. Which interesting. The villain, which we were talking about this before the podcast, the villain in the Suicide Squad movie was way bigger than I thought it was going to be. What they called Starros.
Starros, Project
actually
Starfish.
A Justice League
major villain,
threat, huge threat. But they used it in such a way that it just made so much sense in Suicide Squad. So it was cool that they gave him almost an A tier, S tier villain in a B, C tier kind of, superhero flick, quote unquote. But it worked out so damn well. It really did.
The second Suicide Squad film was much better than the first.
Than the first. I 100. Yeah, the second one gets 2 thumbs up for me. I went in with extremely low expectations. In fact, I went in with no expectations.
I went in with zero expectations.
And I was pleasantly surprised at how they did that movie. And I think they need to give James Gunn more control of the darker comedy in the DC verse because he's nailing it. He's nailing it.
I think it's
it's the right tone of like, ha, 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 I'm laughing, but I also feel really bad for laughing because I shouldn't be laughing, but this is hysterical, but also, what the heck? Who writes this kind of stuff? So.
Well, fun fact, James Gunn is actually signed on to do season 2, all the episodes for Peacemaker. So that makes me super, super excited.
Me too. I can't wait to see what else we get introduced to via the Peacemaker universe. Like for example, other characters that came from Charlton Comics back in the day. Pull it up here. We got Captain Atom, Blue Beetle, The Question, Nightshade, and Peacemaker. What were the big ones that we got from Charlton? But more importantly, I gotta be honest, I would love to see The Question and Nightshade introduced in Peacemaker, especially Nightshade. The Question.
I really want to see Nightshade, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, Nightshade would be great, and I would love to see what they do with Nightshade. But I think they're calling her something different in main continuity now. Yeah, Eve Eden is like her actual name. Yeah, Nightshade was like the Charlatan, but Eve Eden. But I would love to see her. But the question is just, he's that like duster wearing. He's got like the fedora. He looks kind of like Dick Tracy, but like also Rorschach mixed together. I don't know. I just would love to see that. I didn't know that he actually came from Charlton Comics. I know The Question. I actually like The Question as like a hero in DC. Did not know he came from Charlton, which is really cool to me.
That's awesome.
Like we also got Captain Atom, Blue Beetle, which I've talked about before. Yeah. I love Captain Atom and Blue Beetle. I mean, God, if you don't like Blue Beetle, I don't know.
Well,
what to tell you, man.
Blue Beetle is getting a series.
Blue Beetle is getting a series. Are we getting Ted Kord or are we getting Jaime Reyes?
I don't know.
We don't know. Okay,
I don't think we know which one we're getting yet. But Blue Beetle and Peacemaker, they team up in the comics. So
before the Multiversity story arc, they actually team up. They do. He's actually Peacemaker's kind of like a mentor for Jaime Reyes.
He's like a big brother. Weird. It's like a big brother type situation.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's because he's kind of been through the hero thing at this point. He's kind of been through the ropes. He's made a lot of mistakes as Peacemaker, achieving ultimate. Because again, 60s Peacemaker and modern day Peacemaker, completely different characters with the same goal, right? Like 60s Peacemaker was very much a product of the hippie era, very much a product of the anti-Vietnam War movement.
It was basically like the dove versus the hawks, right? He was totally a dove.
He was a dove. That's why he puts a dove. And then in the show, they showcase that a little bit. He's like, I can't shoot anybody without a dove, and he like freaks out about it because like that. But it makes sense because he doesn't kill for no reason. He's not a murderer. He kills with a purpose, which is for peace. So like whether you would not agree with that doesn't matter. In his mind, that's his purpose. He's not just some random murderer, which Vigilante even touches on in the show. He's like, yeah, sometimes we make mistakes, whatever, and like just brushes right over, which I think is brilliant in the writing. Because
and you kind of see that too. You kind of see that in the scene in the show. And I know we're jumping like back and forth, but
all of this is what we do here.
Yeah, it's what we do. We fly by the seat of our pants.
Right.
But you kind of see it in the scene where they're outside the main butterfly's house, and there's the family, right? It's the 2 kids, the mom, and the dad, and he's like, "There's kids, right?" And Peacemaker doesn't want to shoot the kids, and then Vigilante's like, "Move over, I got this."
And then starts humming this like very, very upbeat song, and you're like, "Okay, this dude is psychotic, like officially." But he's crazy. But it works. It works.
They are very good contrasting each other, and I loved it so much. I thought the actor, I forget his name, who played Adrian Chase, Vigilante, was so good. I kind of feel like he took like parts of Deadpool and put an even darker spin on 100%. It, and I absolutely loved it.
That's exactly like when I saw him, just the way he reacted to things, I was like, it's like Deadpool, but a little bit, just a little less not caring, like Deadpool cares. Cold would be the description I would describe Vigilante. Very cold.
Very cold.
Very cold.
Oh,
means to an end.
Freddie Stroma. Thank you, Brandon.
Freddie Stroma. Oh, okay. Actually, what else has he been in? Because I'm actually curious now.
But he's just, and it's a very different tone, because didn't they say in Suicide Squad that they had said that Peacemaker had ended kids, but that then he all of a sudden couldn't in the show.
Right, which I mean, you could technically attribute to the whole rebirth thing, like he died and came back to life, the whole like,
which he kind of he did.
He basically did. That's kind of how the show starts.
Yeah.
It's like, you're like, wait, didn't he just get buried under that building? And the show's like, yeah, you're in the hospital. And which him walking out of the hospital unscathed, they allude to, which the original story arc where he just walked out of the army base or whatever. He did. And he was like all freaking out. He's like, nobody's looking for me. What do you mean? And it's like, bro, like, who are you? Like, we don't even know, where have you been? Who are you?
Right.
Like,
he's like, I'm Peacemaker. And they're like, aren't you a murderer?
It's like, okay, bro, whatever. You can just walk out that way. The exit's over there. Like, it just.
Oh, and the janitor in the hospital, like their interaction together when he's leaving is great.
Yeah.
He's like...
yeah. The janitor, low key, is like his Alfred. Like, honestly,
he really is.
But yeah, so while he was a mentor to Jaime Reyes, he wasn't really Peacemaker. He was Chris Smith, and he wasn't really running the whole anti-hero vigilante game. He was basically just teaching, man.
Yeah.
And like and what's really interesting is like he had a lot of running with the Reach, which if you don't know a lot about the Reach in DC Comics, a quick rundown is they're like an alien culture technology who kind of infiltrate planets from the inside out and take over and burn resources and move on to the next. They're very much like locusts in the way they interact with planets, but they're very technologically advanced. And the Reach is, if you don't know the Reach, that's the Scarab technology, basically. They fight the Reach and everything. That's where all that universe comes from. And he's actually, Peacemaker Chris Smith actually has a lot of experience with fighting the Reach, in particular with working with the Suicide Squad and Amanda Waller. Because if you don't know Amanda Waller and Suicide Squad, they deal a lot with that alien presence on Earth thing, while the Justice League is dealing with, like, the bigger threats, like Lex Luthor and like all the others, like the Joker and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to see how they kind of tied him into that, because he has experience. And I think him and Grifter at some point have some kind of interaction, but I couldn't find any more on that, because Grifter's also like an alien hunter in DC Universe and all that kind of stuff. So he's very much intertwined into like the I would say B list of like DC stuff, but you don't really, he's kind of like behind the shadows at that point. Well, at least until Multiversity, which was like a complete another, I don't even know how to describe that. I guess another reboot they did since Infinite Crisis.
It was, so Multiversity was like a way to throwback at like the Watchmen and kind of bring that tone into the series. If that makes sense. I said that wrong, but like,
no, it makes sense, because Watchmen is very, very dark and dry, and there's this and there's that, and this is that and this is that, and that's just the way it is in the Watchmen universe. So that makes sense, because Peacemaker does deal with, I mean, that's his whole shtick, is peace at any cost, no matter what. So that makes
it's very, there's no gray area, right?
Yeah, none.
There's no gray area. So it's very, and that's what Multiversity was kind of about, was bringing back that kind of tone to it. And it was really cool, because that was what, the 2011 reboot by Grant Morrison. So and there's one of the episodes I call it, not episodes. Issues. There we go. It was like Pax Americana, and that's where Smith is still Peacemaker. He's working alongside President Harley. He's actually working as a bodyguard for President Harley and Nora O'Rourke to keep the world safe, but like something's amiss. And it's kind of cool, because like Harley plots his own assassination and resurrection using the powers of Captain Atom. And actually, Peacemaker is the one who assassinates Harley, but he doesn't know why he's assassinating Harley. But the problem arises where Harley isn't resurrected.
Right.
So now you have a dead president. Yeah. And Peacemaker is his murderer. And so obviously he's arrested and tortured by government agents. And then it's it's really dark, because it should be like, oh, this worked, and then it doesn't.
Yeah, and it's just the fact that he gets mixed up with Amanda Waller, which is like the worst person you could possibly get mixed up with in the DC universe. I mean, look, the bottom line is she's portrayed as being extremely cold, but she actually does really care about Earth. It's just she only cares about her Earth.
Yes.
So she's portrayed as like this villainous character, which I think they do a good job coming across, especially in the animated movies. If you watch JL Justice League in the animated series, they do a really good job of portraying that. But if you read the comics, you understand where Amanda Waller is actually coming from. She really only cares about this Earth, and if she cares about protecting this Earth and everything at all costs, which it makes sense because that is like the Earth Prime, I guess, of the DC universe, where they're at, the current Earth that we deal with. So you can kind of fault her for that, but she does what she has to get the job done, and that's just kind of her character, and that's the way she's always been. So it's interesting that with a character like Peacemaker, she got involved in. I didn't even know half the story until reading all this stuff, and it's incredibly it's so crazy how like you take this 60 like non-violent character and just completely morph him into this like basically maniacal crazy vigilante who is a C-list hero, vigilante. I don't even know what to call him at this point, to be honest with you. I don't even know what to call him.
He's not really,
he's not either.
Yeah, he's. It's funny because in his world everything is like one or the other, right? But him as a character, he's neither hero nor villain.
Right.
But he's
especially in the show. The
show does a really great job of showing that, because in the show, in his mind, he's a hero, right? But then everyone, like, you see in the hospital when everyone's like, aren't you that murderer? Like,
yeah.
So, and then like he does, you can obviously tell like he did feel remorse for killing Flag.
Yeah.
Right. And he starts to kind of see that Waller isn't telling all the truth, right?
Which she never does.
She never does, right? But it's all because, like you said, she's doing what she thinks is best to save her Earth.
Yeah, her reality.
Her reality. Yeah. So, morally flexible and chaotic neutral.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and then they introduce characters like Judo Master, which Judo Master, super, obviously martial arts heavy character, very, very skilled in judo specifically. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a name. Judo Master. Hello. But came out of the World War II, came out of the Pacific originally. I think they did a good job with Judo Master, honestly, in the show. I kind of wish they would have. Look, his costume was kind of dumb. I'm gonna be honest. That's my personal feelings, but I get why they couldn't do the original costume, because it would probably, especially right now in today's climate, would probably just raise too much questions. But they did a good job with his ability. So, yeah.
I love the little quirks that they add in to the characters, too, like Judo Master and the flaming hot Cheetos. Like,
yeah. He's just always eating Cheetos, just sitting there, like, which has no bearing on the character, but also a really great addition.
It has no bearing on the character whatsoever, right? But you're like, I can relate to this guy a little wee bit.
I love flaming hot Cheetos, and he's always just in the corner, just calm as a cucumber, just sitting there in his green suit, just. And what was like 4'2", 4 foot nothing as far as like height, but really great job portrayal of powers and abilities of being a martial artist. I mean,
and he
kind of nailed it.
They definitely nailed that with him. I do think whatever way they're going with it, certain characters they do get really well.
Yes. Yeah.
Certain characters you're like, you didn't nail it from the comics, but
you did a good job.
Like Peacemaker here is really not what we're used to at all, but you're still like, I kind of like him, although he is a little bit, right, when he gets like insanity, but it's not the peaceful, non-lethal original charlatan Peacemaker. So
correct. And we get the White Dragon, which White Dragon was ingrained. I mean, and they did a really good job keeping White Dragon akin to the original comic look. That suit,
man. I gotta
get praise.
That suit was so good.
That suit was sick, right? Like that suit was like actually sick.
When they showed it, I went, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, they did a good job. Now, from what I know in the comics, he didn't have that much of technical prowess. That was more of the original Peacemaker, and they kind of made it his father for the show. Not mad at it. Makes sense. Gave great origin story. You had the whole room that was like a technological dimensional just gateway into like it was really cool, man, because we've seen that before.
That's some quantum physics stuff right there.
That's it. The quantum physics. It was a quantum room. Yeah, it was cool, and you're kind of like, what the hell, and then they kind of explain it that his dad's like this neo-Nazi, and you're like, oh, he's like an evil genius. Kind of makes sense. Okay, cool. Let's run with this. I'm ready for it. Like, because at first you're kind of taken back. You're like, who's creating the technology here? Because it's about 2 episodes in, you realize it's not John Cena's character, because he's kind of dopey. Let's be honest. He's kind of a meathead.
He's definitely a meathead.
So
yeah.
Who was making the helmet? So I think it's really cool that you get to that. That's where all the tech comes from, and he just robs. He takes all the helmets in the one bag. I was like, he's gonna take them all, right? And he starts taking them all. I was like, all right, good, because I want to see all those, like the Iron Man suits. I want to see them all in action. I do.
Listen, like they're going through all the helmets, and I'm like, that one sounds cool. That was this one. This is this. Just don't put that one on. That's the scabies helmet. And I'm like, whoa.
Every man has to experience scabies once. I was like, that's your excuse? Really? That's what you're... Okay, dude.
And then they're like, every person in the vicinity gets scabies. And I'm like, what?
Terrible helmet.
What is that gonna do?
That's the Florida helmet is what that is.
It's the Florida helmet. Like, you're gonna go have to put some cream all over your body for like... every day. Like, what?
But it was cool. I like how they had tied that in. They made him kind of like this evil genius technical wizard, and that's kind of like his son was like a disappointment, because it did remind me of Walk Hard. It was like the wrong kid died, or whatever, wrong son died.
It was exactly like that. I got that same exact vibe. And he didn't have a brother in the comics, and they gave him a brother in the series, and it is a good origin. It's a good origin. It might be totally different than what is there in the comics, but you know what? I'm actually okay with that. Like, certain origin stories, when they completely go awry from what it is in the comics, Wanda Maximoff.
Okay, all right, I'll give you that.
I get a little salty about, okay? But like this one, I'm like, you know what? I'm all right with it. I'm totally okay with it.
Me too. And I'm happy they introduced White Dragon, because this is a nice segue into the Black Adam JSA introduction, because White Dragon was actually a foe of the JSA as well. Yes. Not specifically not Justice League or anything. He was Suicide Squad and a JSA villain. So that ties into that Black Adam universe, which we'll probably talk about later, either as Black Adam or maybe we just talk about the trailer. I don't know what we're going to do, but it's interesting to see that they're introducing that Warner Brothers is going the JSA route, because I feel like that could be their moneymaker moving forward, is introduce these obscure characters like Peacemaker, do all this kind of stuff that really nobody's really knows about too much, and build your story from there. I mean, I would love to see a JSA, Atom Smasher, Alan Scott, Green Lantern, Jay Garrick, Flash. I would love to see that.
I mean, it makes sense if you think about it, for them to do it that way, because I say it makes sense for them to do it that way, but
right,
let's not make the new Batman movie. I'm sorry I brought it up, but I feel like I have to right now.
Another beer. All the reviews are coming out. So since we're talking about all the reviews are coming out, that's really good.
Look, I'm gonna save judgment, on it.
Not just one review. Like, a lot of reviews are coming out, like top tier reviews with this movie. Now, here's the thing. They all say the same thing, which has got me worried. They all say, this is the new, darker, edgier Batman, not your grandma's caped crusader. So now that they all have that same narrative, I'm a little worried that they're pushing some kind of,
well, and
pushing it too hard.
Someone said, I forget who it was, that this is the Dark Knight that we wanted.
Right, which is a very bold statement.
That's a very bold statement.
The Nolan trilogy exists, so it's a very, very heavy statement. Now, were you paid to say that, or do you actually feel that way about the movie?
Now, I liked The Dark Knight. the Nolan series.
I did too.
The Dark Knight.
I did too.
The Dark Knight is one of those movies that if it's on, I will stop everything that I'm doing and watch it. Even though I've seen it probably 57,000 times, it doesn't matter. So for whoever that person, I can't remember who it was, to say that has me slightly nervous that maybe he doesn't know comics.
Yeah, it's like I've said over and over again. There's certain things I don't want to see in a Batman movie. Like I don't want to see falling pearls, and it's just one of those tropes. I'm just sick of. Like we get it.
Yeah.
We get it. We understand she was wearing really expensive jewelry. She got killed, and it's very sad. But there's so much more stories that can be told from Bruce. Old man Bruce, younger man Bruce, multidimensional. Like we don't need his parents dying anymore. We just don't need it. We need the others. Like I want to see Bruce stranded halfway across the damn galaxy with no way home to get home, but like a Green Lantern ring or something. You know what I mean? Like there's so much more to be done. I'm tired of seeing those damn pearls fall.
Well, and that's just it. Is everyone who has read the comics and grown up with that, like. It's the same thing with like Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
Like we're tired of seeing Uncle Ben die, right?
We are tired of seeing Uncle Ben die. We are. It's just give us substance and not origin stories is the main point here. Which is why I really liked Peacemaker, because they're like, yeah, here's the origin, but also here's all this crazy messed up stuff happening in his world that you're just gonna have to buckle up for next season to figure out where it goes. And like it was the perfect like. Here's these butterflies, which funny we talked about butterfly last podcast, but a completely different version. And here are these these little spaceships, these cute little spaceships, and like you're like what the heck's going on? What are they doing? But it was really nice. It was a nice villain. It was a nice story. It was a nice story arc. It was really well done.
It was one of those villains. Once you learned the truth about, you're like, okay, I'm sympathetic, and those are the best villains, right?
Misplaced.
The villain, like
I agree.
The villains that I have sympathy for, I'm like, gosh darn it.
Yeah, and it was at first, like I said, I thought the butterfly was some kind of rendition of that race I mentioned earlier, the Hive.
The Reach?
Blanking out. The Reach, the Hive, the Reach. I'm thinking of Halo. Too much Halo stuff going on. The Reach. I originally thought the butterflies were like part of the Reach, and I just didn't know that maybe like that was some like subspecies I just didn't know about the Reach having, and like no, it was just something completely different, kind of similar but completely different. Because the Reach is malice. These butterflies were not really malicious. They were just kind of trying to survive.
They were they were trying to survive, and it's funny because they were trying to do what they thought was right, by infiltrating or taking over, I should say.
Right, taking over.
People in positions of power to save the planet so that not only would they have a place to live, but so that we would have a place to live as well. So it's one of those things. It's like, okay, so then Peacemaker has this decision, right? Do we make the choices ourselves, or do we allow this race of aliens to make the decisions for us? And he was like, you know what? We're gonna make these decisions ourselves.
And you know what I would love to see? I would love to see a tie-in of Vigilante to Titans.
Yes.
I would love to see that, because there is a couple of tie-ins from Vigilante to Titans, especially when Disco Suit Dick was a thing. In fact, Vigilante at one point, actually, his costume very much was similar to Disco Dick's suit. Maybe not so much the light blue, but he had the gold belt and the dark blue,
close.
And the white boots, the white go-go boots, and the gloves. Like it was pretty damn close to Disco Dick. So I would love to see maybe more of that. Maybe that tie-in to the DC universe, maybe a little Titans tie-in, more Vigilante. I just love Vigilante as a character. I think he's great.
He's great.
I think he's great.
I would love to see him get his own, like, I'm not gonna lie, I want to see him have his own spin-off series.
Right, like a Vigilante spin-off. Like, let's get an origin. Let's like which Vigilante are we getting? Like, and we've talked about how they kind of mixed. So give us an original origin. Maybe mix the two origins. Maybe I would love personally. I just want to see him fight Nightwing. That's kind of my whole thing behind this. I want to see Nightwing versus Vigilante because they're very much this similar character. It's just one's a little more Jason Toddy than the other, with the killing. So I would like to see it, man. I really would.
For those of you who don't know, it's totally Vigilante.
Yeah. It's yeah. Vigilante don't care.
No.
He's very much don't care about killing people. He's going into, I think it's psychosis, or no, it's schizophrenia that I think he's actually diagnosed with. I'm not sure what I think it's schizophrenia with like bouts of psychosis is what it is.
I mean,
he's an interesting character.
He's an interesting character. Like the scene where he basically gets himself arrested is hysterical to me.
He's like what? He's like 140 pounds soaking wet, trying to throw this wrought iron trash can through this window.
And all the cops are sitting out there, right? They're all sitting outside, like eating lunch, and they're just looking at him like, what's this kid doing?
So good. Oh God. Because I at that point I was like, wait, he's not just gonna go obviously get arrested, is he? And then it happened, and I was like, oh, he did just go obviously. That what? Yeah, it was good the way they did him, man. The way they did White Dragon again, I can't say that enough. I wish when you really hate a character, that's how you know it's a good actor.
Oh yeah, and the guy who plays him is he's so good. He is. Joe's having beer issues.
I'm having beer issues. I'm just trying to add salt to my beer.
Listen, it's a thing, guys. Believe it or not. Beer salt exists for a reason.
It's so good.
Oh, by the way, we didn't say what beer we were having today.
Oh, we didn't. That's a nice segue into the beer. Let's go.
I know, right?
What are you drinking, Katy?
So I am having World Court Mocha Blonde Stout by Legal Remedy Brewing Company out of Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Blonde stouts are so good. We were talking about this off stream. They're so delicious. B courteously bought me a Dos Equis 6-pack, and I'm on the last one, and I am adding beer salt to it, which is a lime lemon beer salt, and together they're delicious.
It smells like beer salt smells like Pledge.
It does smell like Pledge, but it tastes. Yeah, it smells like Pledge, but it tastes so good. I pretty much saved the podcast. You did pretty much save the podcast. Mostly. But yeah, I would love to see more tie-ins to other characters. I would love to see other universes crossing over. I wouldn't even be too upset if we saw Hawk and Dove in Peacemaker as from Titans. Like, maybe not even give me Nightwing or like, Starfire. Just give me Hawk and Dove, because I think they would tie in pretty well.
I mean, the fact that that's all on HBO Max, right?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
It wouldn't surprise me. And, they've got a Green Lantern story in the works. They've got the Blue Beetle, like we said, story in the works.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's very possible that we're going to see it. And I would absolutely love to see it.
I would love to see more of Peacemaker. Honestly, I would, in the Blue Beetle story, go the Reach route, go that arc, go that route, reach from that material, bring it to the big screen. Give him like a protege in Jaime Reyes. I know B doesn't like Jaime Reyes, but I do. Let's get the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle out here and put him in the forefront, man. And let's just, I'm ready for it, man. I'm ready. I would love to see more like Reach technology in the DC comics and the DC animated series. It's so cool, and it's not touched on enough.
I kind of feel like I kind of feel like the whole butterfly thing might be stepping in that direction.
Fair enough.
So it could be the WB's way of being like, all right, this is what we're going to do here. See how it's accepted.
Yeah. I mean, that was my initial thought. I was like, I know this story. That's the Reach. And then like literally halfway through, I had to look it up. I'm like, I don't think I'm right. I was like, I don't think this has anything to do with the Reach. And yeah, it wasn't. It was an original kind of thing that they put in the show. So,
but it's cool because, sometimes you look at taking comic book origins and completely revamping them to your own thing, and it completely backfires in your face, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have things like this, like Peacemaker, where you take a comic book origin, you're like, I'm going to completely revamp this. And it works.
It works. You have the right actor for it too.
Yeah. Helps. And which is crazy because like, you think about it, you're like, really? John Cena?
Yeah.
And then you're like, huh. All right. By the way, Cena, I'm sorry, but like I said, I told you, I wanted you to play Namor, so this was not me. This was all them.
Yeah, this was just a really good casting. The whole, like we've talked about before, the show across the board was really good casting with everybody on board.
We're so good at words.
So good at words. But John Cena just really bringing that like ignorant, patriotic mentality, and I say ignorant not in the negative way, but like just completely oblivious, patriotic person to like the forefront and like just doing a good job, man.
It's
Like. Like if he wasn't Peacemaker in the film, like you would expect him to be like that, like on the street. Like you could just totally see him being like a blind American, just patriotic as hell for no reason, right? I could totally see that. So it works. It works.
He really does such.
It's a good job too.
It's a good job.
Away anything from him. Like I'm not like saying like it's an easy character to portray or anything. Like no, not at all. Like he just happened to do a really good job with it.
And he does a great job at kind of going into when he starts become mentally unstable after he shoots his father, right? So I'm really interested to see how that's going to translate now, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's going to be real interesting, actually.
Are they going to make him more and more unstable?
And are we going to see more Justice League characters coming in like they did at the end of like last episode?
That was so
where he
funny.
totally Aquaman off. I'm sorry, I mean, he does. He just and like it's in the most John Cena way he does it. Like
it was so good. Like I know a lot of people are really irked at that scene.
Oh, it's such a good scene though.
And I get why, right? I get why you want to be upset about that because the Flash would never talk to Aquaman like that, right? Like
sometimes he does.
But exactly. So, it's that right there was like such good, kind of like a little throw in, like, oh, now you guys show up after it's all said and done? Like, thanks. It's cool.
It was good fan service.
I got this.
It was good. I liked it. I didn't expect it. And originally it was actually supposed to be Batman and Superman.
Oh, really?
That's who James Gunn had originally wanted. But for whatever reason, I guess they couldn't give them Batman and Superman, so we got Aquaman Flash, which I gotta be honest with you, works out way better.
I think it worked out.
In the delivery of the jokes and the punchlines and everything that happens in that scene. I think if it would have been Bats and Soups, it probably wouldn't have been as funny.
I don't think it would have because the whole listen, I know people are upset about the whole fish joke thing because of the boys. But like it doesn't matter, man. It's so good. Like who cares? Like I don't care if it was done in The Boys. Like, it's still funny to me. It's still funny to me.
That and the whole, like, just the whole jokes with the main Justice League in general, like, just cracking fun at them the whole show. It was a nice nod, man. It was nice to be like, hey, yeah, we're like, we know they're not showing up in our movie, but we're in the same universe. Just to remind you guys, like, what's going on here.
Which I think is great.
Cyborg, that's what it was. Cyborg. It was Batman and Cyborg.
It was Batman and Cyborg?
Yeah, it was Batman and Cyborg. That's what it was.
Still, like, I don't think the jokes would have been as good. And I know people were like, because, like, didn't Marvel have some sort of hand in shooting that scene? I think they did.
They did.
And I know a lot of people are like, "Whoa, there's Marvel dipping its hand in and da 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 da." But that show had the dark humor to go along with the grittiness of it, and that scene right there tied it all together, whether you want to believe it or not.
The scene was completely necessary. Completely necessary. I don't care what anybody says. That scene had to happen.
It like kind of made light of what's her face basically being nearly dead.
yeah. And I don't know if Amanda Waller's daughter is in the comic books. I didn't get a chance to look that up or research that at all. I don't, from what I remember reading and what I remember growing up with and everything, I don't remember her having a daughter. But that could have changed recently, and I just haven't read it yet. But it was an interesting. Like I mean, come on. If you've watched any of the animated DC stuff, you know who Amanda Waller is. You don't have to read comic books. Just watch the shows, and you know who she is. She's referenced a lot.
This makes me really nervous because at the end of the show, they basically exposed everything, right? So now I'm like, is Amanda Waller going to kill her daughter?
Yeah. Right? Or is she? Because she would. That's the thing.
That's
That's the
the
kind of
thing.
person Amanda Waller is.
That's the thing. Amanda
That's
Waller
the
would
thing.
totally do that to
Yeah.
save the program that she's running,
Yep.
her job, who she is, and everything else. So,
yep. She 100% is that person. Has had 3 daughters.
Oh, wow.
See, I don't remember. I legit, if that, I don't remember any of that. I just remember her always being like the center of all the shenanigans when stuff went down with certain characters, especially Batman Beyond, and explaining his origin and how that whole thing went down with Old Man Bruce and Terry McGinnis's mom. Oof. That's another podcast though. That's a whole other story. But yeah, I remember her being she's always the puppet master behind stuff. That's basically Amanda Waller.
Yeah, 100%. And they do a semi good job of showing that. They don't really necessarily show how much of a puppet master she really is.
Yeah, because she really does pull the strings. She's dark op all the way.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like if she thinks something's gonna expose her, that's it. It's over, right? And she wants the job to get done, no matter what.
Yeah, she's definitely not a half measure type of person.
No, she's not.
that's for sure. And I kind of want to see more of her. I'm going to be honest. I love Amanda Waller as a character. I think she's a great. I don't want to call her a villain because I don't really classify her as a villain. But I think she's a great character.
She is a really good character. She's not necessarily a villain, but again, she's not a hero, right?
No, and not at all.
And it's funny because like they have very similar psyches, I want to say, right? Like Peacemaker will do anything to achieve peace. Amanda Waller will do anything to save her Earth.
This reality that she exists in, yeah.
So they're very similar characters, like, but the difference is in the show you can see Peacemaker. He's not going to kill he didn't kill that kid, those kids, right? But Amanda Waller had no issue with
none.
You know, in the very first scene of Suicide Squad, like half the squad getting wiped out.
Yeah, just go ahead and do it because they're not like that one which is really funny because we're talking about Suicide Squad. In Suicide Squad, you think that old guy is going to be like one of the main characters, and he dies like right away.
Yeah, what's his face?
You're like, so who are we focusing on now? I don't forgot what.
Oh my god, going on. What's his name? The guy who played Yondu.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. The character in the movie, but yeah, he like you think it's gonna be, and I love how the movie starts.
Oh, it's
you think it's gonna be about one thing, and it just shifts instantly. You're like, oh wait, whoa. Okay.
Wait, there's 2 teams?
Yeah. And then the way they just go into it and just the way they build off the movie into the show, into the Peacemaker show, and then you get Vigilante and you get the butterflies, and then you get like that one butterfly who's Mers or whatever heck his name is. That was a cool character too. He was like the defective butterfly. He's like, we just wanted to come here and survive. Like, we're not trying to like, kill you all. Like you think we're trying to kill you all.
Yeah, and that was really great.
I don't know, man. It was a nice surprise. It was really well done. I can't talk enough about how I went in with 0 expectations, but it was done very well. And every episode I was like, all right, well, I've been entertained. Like, for example, when I play a game and I watch, a show or whatever, and if the show stops me from gaming, that's generally how I know it's a good show. And that happened with Peacemaker throughout basically the entire show. I was just sitting here watching, and I wasn't even doing anything in Lost Ark. I was like, I'm logged in, but I'm watching Peacemaker, so it was good. It was good. Mern. Yeah, Mern. He was a great character. Great character development.
And it's funny because like they kept that so well hidden, right? Until it was exposed.
Yeah, until you start to wonder why the X-ray helmets start to being used more, and you're like, oh, what's the whole? And then you're like, oh, okay, now I see why.
Like when that scene happened, when Waller's daughter put it on and saw him, I went, oh.
Same. Yeah, I didn't expect that. I did. I called one of the police officers. I was right about that. I called that from the get-go. I'm like, he's probably gonna be one of them. I did not call Mern. Gonna be honest. So. He was good, and you felt bad for when he got crushed. You're like, oh no, little butterfly dude.
I felt really sad. I felt really sad. But then like they were like, okay, so he's doing this to kind of stop the butterflies, even though like what the story that he told wasn't exactly true either, right? So there was, it's a lot to kind of take in, but it was really good. Like it was one of those shows that you thought it was going one way, and then all of a sudden it jumped, and then all of a sudden it jumped again, and I highly enjoyed it. I thought it was a very good show.
Trying to think of, that in the Blue Beetle story arc, he actually finds himself in the original temple where the Blue Beetle scarab is found, which I think is very, very important to know, because it kind of brings all that story full circle, which I thought I've been looking for that for like 20 minutes now. I finally found it. But yeah, it's cool how they bring all that into the fold, and they just tie everything together. And he actually gets approached at one point with a yellow ring from Sinestro Corps, so he has the opportunity to be a Yellow Lantern.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he has the opportunity to be a Yellow Lantern, and I believe he rejects it because he still has like will and courage and stuff, but he also, with his origin and where he come from, he had a lot of fear.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, so I was actually approached during the Sinestro Wars he was actually approached to be a Yellow Lantern, which is pretty cool.
How cool if they did like a Lantern series. If they would bring that would be so cool.
Oh, if they reach out, oh man, if they do like we're gonna completely go off the rails here.
Dro about to have a nerdgasm here, guys.
If they do a Lantern story arc, and they do Blackest Night, Darkest, Brightest Day, that's whole story arc, and if they bring in Peacekeeper, like John Cena as a Yellow Lantern, I will lose it. I will lose it. I'm not even gonna lie, I will lose all of my shit. I don't think they will happen, but did I say Peacekeeper? Crap. Peacemaker. Sorry.
That's okay. Crap. That's only one. That's only one.
We went an entire hour, and I said it once. That's surprising. I thought I was going to be saying it a lot more, but yeah,
I did too.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool to see that. Yeah, correct. That's what I'm saying. They are doing a Green Lantern Corps move, so if they happen to tie in John Cena's Peacemaker with the Yellow Lantern and the whole Corpse Wars and that whole story. But see, here's the thing. This is a lot of assumptions because we don't even know if they're going to go Brightest Day, Darkest Night story arc with the Green Lantern Corps. They could go Anti-Monitor, Sinestro Corps Wars, origin of the Blue Lanterns, maybe, with what's his name? The one that defects. I forget his name. It starts with a K. I forget, and it's not important right now to this podcast. But yes, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go. They have so much to work with. They really do.
I can't wait for us to do a podcast on the Lanterns, and I'm just gonna sit back and let you talk.
It's gonna be so long. There's no way we can do it in an hour. There's so many lanterns. If we just do the Green Lanterns, maybe I could fit that in an hour.
No. We'll just do one podcast. Will be one killer. Another will be another killer. It'll be fine.
Oh my god, that's like 13 podcasts.
I know. It's fantastic. There are 52 weeks in a year, Droker.
There you go. We're going to hit all the colors of the spectrum, including the ultraviolet core, which I know nothing about, except that Sinestro is now leading that core, apparently. So that's all I've looked up into it. Yeah, there's a whole nother ultraviolet spectrum to the light. DC's gone crazy with Green Lantern verse, and I love it.
I'm here for it. Because, like, and this is kind of going off the rails a little bit, is because, I don't know much about the Lantern Corps. For those of you who don't know, I'm more Marvel, Droker's more DC. So it's why we work, one of the many reasons why we work so well with each other, because we get to learn so much more about each other's loves of comics. So
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, they opened that universe up wide open. There was I think it was 8 or 9 original cores, and then they added the white light. And then once they added the white light in, they had to add the opposite of the white light, which is ultraviolet light. And now there's an ultraviolet spectrum that they have to go through, and there's a whole other core. They went crazy with the Lanternverse. That's why I'm excited to see what they do with it and how they tie it into everything, because it literally does tie into everything. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see.
I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be really cool to see where they go. And like I said, if I get a cameo of Peacemaker, like in the Blue Beetle series or movie or whatever they're gonna do with Blue Beetle,
I'm fair. I would. I can't see how, and I say this with a grain of salt, right? Like, I can't see how they couldn't do that.
If it's Jaime Reyes, they couldn't. If they go another Blue Beetle route, I could see how they could forego that.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, if they do Jaime Reyes, they kind of have to.
They have to.
They kind of have to touch on the Peacemaker because he does become like a big brother to him.
He does, and like he kind of helps him out, but like he also allows Jaime to become like his own superhero, like his own person,
his own Blue Beetle.
His own Blue Beetle. So it just makes sense for him to kind of do that, which I think would be kind of like a great segue into maybe when Cena doesn't really want to do the series anymore, or HBO doesn't want to do the series anymore, then it's like passing the torch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that. That's a good idea.
Passing that mantle along, even though it's not necessarily the same mantle, but it's kind of just some guidance and being the big brother.
Story. Yeah. And then do cameos every once in a while. I would love that. I personally would. Yes, Katy just nailed it. That's exactly what I would want. Actually, that's 100% what I would want to see.
It would be really cool to see, you know, and it would be a good segue if, you know, that's the route that they want to go.
Listen, Ted Cord is going to do the Booster Gold Buddy Cop Traveling Through Time series. Okay, we've already discussed this. That's going to be the Ted Cord series. It's going to be Ted Cord, Booster Gold, time traveling, being buddy cops together, solving crimes. That's what it's going to be. You can't have Jaime Reyes doing that. Jaime Reyes is not a buddy cop kind of guy.
No, he's not.
Ted Cord very much is a buddy cop kind of guy. All right.
Plus, like with the whole Jaime Reyes as the Blue Beetle, then you could see Peacemaker, who's really just Chris, then get implanted with a scarab and like all of this other stuff, right? So it could be kind of really cool to see.
Yeah, and there's not also just a Blue Beetle. There's a Green Beetle and a Red Beetle as well. There's other like the Beetle is just a technology. It just happens to be that we got the Blue Beetle on Earth, but there's other Beetles like around. They're basically like galactic guardians. One for like each. They're almost like the Green Lantern Corps, but just they tend to have a bigger range of space than the Green Lantern Corps because there's only like one per like every so many. I forget how exactly it works out, but there was at once way more, and now there's not as many Beetles. But yeah, we have any last thoughts on Peacemaker? I mean, I feel like we've pretty much covered it all.
I feel like we've covered it all. Like he has his foot in a lot of things, but I don't know if you want to touch into any more of the Watchmen stuff.
Yeah, so the Watchmen stuff I'm not entirely 100% on. I know that you have Dr. Manhattan, who's tied into the multiverse now, who basically is, I mean, he's DC's equivalent of a, oh God, what's the Marvel term for it? An apex being or whatever they're called?
A nexus being.
Nexus being, yeah. He's basically DC equivalent of a nexus being. He exists as always as himself in every universe. So he kind of is like he's omnipotent, omnipowerful, but he's not a god, but like he is. But anyway, they're tying that all in. I'm not really sure how this all. They blew up the DC multiverse recently, and I don't know where they're going to go with it. I'm not really sure how this is all going to tie in, and I haven't read the Metalverse yet either. So this is all like new territory for me. I will know this. It's not a multiverse anymore. The DC is now an omniverse again. So
it's wild.
We could be seeing a lot more Peacemaker in other shorts, other series, it literally like I still need to get caught up on this part of, if you guys know Scar in the streams, he comes by quite a bit. Scar is more caught up with the Metalverse and the Omniverse than I am. He's kind of been filling me in because he really latched onto that story arc, but there's a whole lot going on. So it'll be interesting to see. DC is now the Omniverse as of the Infinite Frontier. Yeah. I know, like it's a recent thing, and they kind of blew it back wide open. This is what we were talking about before the podcast. Like DC went full multiverse, then they Infinite Crisis it, and there was one, and now there's like it's an Omniverse now. So I don't know. That's definitely not the end for Peacemaker. I almost said Peacemaker.
Once we've only said it once,
and it will be interesting to see how the Watchmen tie in because. Peacemaker was actually an inspiration for the comedian in the original series. So if there's a lot of parallels you guys see between those two characters, there's a reason for that. Which again, the rebirth, not the origin. You see why it gets confusing in comic books, man? Do you see why?
This is why comics.
This is why comics are confusing, because there's so many reboots and just rehashes, which I'm not really complaining about, but it's hard to keep it all in order in your head when you kind of got things going on. But it is interesting to see how moving forward they're going to take a lot of these characters. I mean, it's even just knowing that the comedian was based off Peacemaker is still kind of a cool thing, right? Like that's a
really
very dark
cool
character.
Yeah, so he is. But
it's interesting to see how they go. I don't know. There's a whole new Omniverse out there. There's a DC Metal verse out there where there's like the Batman Who Laughs, and there's just craziness going on with these Robins that have Joker smiles. I don't know.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a whole gang of Robins who look like Jokers. Yeah. They all have the creepy white makeup and the Joker smile, but they all look like basically Tim Drake, Jason Todd when they were kids. It's like the creepiest thing ever.
All right, I'm gonna have to go check that out because that sounds like amazing and creepy all at the same time, and I'm totally here for that. If you guys haven't seen our logo, you know that's what we're here for. So
yeah, there's the Batman Who Laughs, which looks like a bondage Batman mixed with the Joker in Pinhead universe. Is essentially what it looks like.
That sounds amazing.
It's crazy now. It's so crazy now. It's so crazy. And like I said, that was when we talked about Sideways because of the DC Metalverse. We got a character like Sideways who didn't do popular, but he was basically DC's America Chavez. That was essentially what he was. He was a portal. He busted open portals and could hop portals between dimensions, and that was his shtick. And he just didn't catch on like America Chavez did. So
interesting.
I don't think he was as powerful as her too, to be honest with you. I think he could only portal hop.
Yeah, she's pretty powerful. So which I'm excited to see her.
It'll be interesting to see her. Honestly, I'm. We'll see where it goes with her.
We will. But yeah, I think that's all we have for this episode on Peacemaker. We haven't fully decided yet who we're going to do next week. We got to bounce some ideas off of each other and maybe off the chat as well. But guys, thank you guys as always for listening to From Comics to Cinemas. As always, you can catch us at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live in the Candyland Discord, or if you missed that, you can catch it as it's uploaded on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. Thanks so much, guys, for hanging out, and we'll see you guys all later. Bye.
Later.